Jonathan, can you promote Sarah?
Yep, I'll do it now.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you. We've got a super exciting hour packed full of information. Just some quick welcome and some housekeeping. If you'd like to use, today's session will be recorded and will be publicly available, posted on the Health and Life Science Community Connections Yammer site and our Healthcare and Life Science blog. It will be done after, and we'll send you a recap, so no need to worry about the presentation or the video. It'll all be up on the site. But if you do not consent to the recording, this is an opportunity for you to leave, but we will make the recording available afterward. If you'd like, for additional functionality while you're here, turn on live captions. Please use the chat at the top of your screen to ask any questions. Please use reactions. They're always fun. And we'll be posting a poll perhaps at the end. Second to that, for our digital event code and conduct, we at Microsoft, our mission is to empower every person and every organization in the planet to achieve more. That includes Microsoft events and gatherings included on the digital platform, where we seek to create a respectful, friendly, and fun and inclusive experience for all our participants. And we encourage everyone to assist in creating a welcoming and safe environment. All right, over to you, Grayson and Abby. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting us or coming to our session today. My name is Abby Sweeney. I am a senior program manager at Teams Engineering. I focus specifically in healthcare and life sciences, which means I work with all of our health and life science customers to help adopt Teams, mainly from a platform standpoint, and then also bringing feedback back into our product team to help sort of, create features, sort of create more advancements in Teams and in the healthcare space. With me today, I have my co-worker Grayson, who you can see donning his brilliant avatar. Grayson, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I am Abby's counterpart here in Teams Engineering. I work closely with some of our larger strategic healthcare life science customers, and again, specialize in being that kind of window into engineering, helping ensure that the Teams platform is built with the needs and kind of real world use cases of our customers in mind, and sharing information on what's new, what's coming to customers like yourselves. So looking forward to sharing some good content with you here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Grayson. So to go over sort of what we're going to cover today, we have been tasked with the what's new in Teams. So all of the fun new things that have recently been launched and what's coming in the sort of next 3 to 6 months in Microsoft Teams. Everything that we discuss is going to be on the M365 roadmap. So if you hear something and you want to see what date it's releasing or how far along it is, go to the M365 roadmap, search on the feature, and you'll be able to see it there. We'll drop the link into the chat, and I may mention some dates as we go throughout. So we'll be covering a couple different areas in Teams. Firstly, I'll be covering chat and channel updates, calling updates, and FLW, which is frontline worker updates. Then I'm going to hand it over to Grayson to cover the meeting and the device and IT Pro updates. So lots to get through. We'll be monitoring the chat as we go as well. Now, before we jumped into the actual deck, we wanted to quickly do a demo of avatars. So as you can see, Grayson is already sporting his avatar, which actually looks very similar to him. Not that you can verify that. And I thought I would start on video and then show you what the transition looks like going to an avatar. So as you can see, I have my video on at the moment. To get to an avatar, the way that you do that is to go the exact same place that you change your backgrounds. There's a little sort of tab for avatars, and then I literally click my avatar, apply it, and then it should, after a couple of maybe like 10 seconds, should pop up with my avatar and my background. So now you can see my avatar. Happy for you to give me comments in the chat. Does it look like my actual face and hair? Who knows? But this is kind of what an avatar to video and back and forth looks like. A couple of sort of tidbits about avatars. If some of you may have heard of them, some of you may not have. You can have up to 3 different avatars in your kind of portfolio at one time. So you can create an avatar that looks nothing like you. You can have an avatar that looks exactly like you, or whatever you want. So it's a kind of a nice way. If you're feeling happy one day, you can have one avatar, moody another day, have a different avatar. We also have the ability to do reactions with avatars. So I saw a couple of people just then doing hearts and clapping and all the rest of it. We actually have the ability to do live reactions within our avatars there. So you can see Grayson just snuck in a heart. I'm going to do a big celebration. I don't know when that's England who scores in the World Cup. All different avatars that reactions that come through here. So lots of really cool things that you can do here. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've forgotten to mention, Grayson. Anything that you want to cover?
No, I think you nailed it. I was just going to say, since we're talking about creating multiple avatars, I think maybe one of the best use cases for that is creating maybe one as a business professional, right?
Yeah.
With maybe a suit and a tie on, for example. Maybe another where, you would join more laid back meetings like a team huddle or something like that. So just throwing some examples of why you might want to create more than one out there.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great couple of uses there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, do you want to answer that question, Grace?
No, I was just going to say the only other thing I'll mention here, and we don't have anything to share in this presentation here today on this, but I just want to mention the whole avatars thing in general, right? Being able to create your avatar and the avatar that you create and use inside Teams meetings is the avatar that in the future will be used for all of our mesh experiences, right? So we don't have a lot to share with you beyond what's already been announced at Ignite in terms of immersive experiences and things of that nature. But just know that if you go ahead and spend the time to create that here today, that is time well spent. That'll be used in the future for those immersive views and experiences as well, if you plan to use those in your environment.
Yeah, exactly. And just to answer 2 quick questions in the chat, and then I will move on. The avatars capture they go off your audio. So you can see that my mouth is moving because I'm talking. That's because it knows I'm off mute and I'm talking. It doesn't actually capture your live motion or hand gestures currently. So actually now my video is off. Your video has to be off when you use your avatars, and the mouth moves because you're talking. So that answers that one. And then how to create them. There's an app a first-party app within the Teams client. Within that app is how you create your avatar person. So you can create your hair, your body type, your clothing, whatever it is. So it's pretty easy. Cool. Okay. Well, seeing as the avatars were hit, maybe I'll keep mine on whilst I go cover my slides. So moving into some other sort of areas to focus on. The first area I'm going to cover is chat and channel announcements. We have a ton of new things in here, especially on the chat area. So I'll cover them. Grayson is going to be answering questions in the chat. And as I said, if you have questions on timelines that I don't mention, then feel free to go onto the M365 roadmap and have a look there. So the first piece I wanted to cover is channels. So one of the biggest, I guess, uses of Teams is the channel experience and the Teams experience. This is where we tend to find a lot of our teamwork is done, a lot of collaboration, sharing files, collaborating on files, having conversations to allow sort of everyone to be able to sort of participate rather than one-on-one conversations that happen on chat. So we have this new experience in channels, which is kind of different to how we had it initially. So I am going to play a video and turn off the sound. So this is our channels experience. Previously, the biggest sort of change that you might notice is where the post compose box is. So you can see here at the top of the channel, we have the composition box, whereas previously this was at the bottom of the channel. So in here, you're able to create your posts or announcements, whatever it is. When you have a thread, you can come in here, reply to it, add emojis, add attachments, whatever it is, and that would just add to the thread. We also have a pop out now. So let's say, for example, I was having a conversation or I was in a meeting and I wanted to also go and see a chat, but I couldn't do both things at once. I can now pop out a channel and you're able to see, or pop out a thread specifically within a channel, and you're able to see both things at once. moving on to the next piece after, oh, maybe, is everyone seeing? I'm seeing a couple of chat messages that people aren't seeing. Oh, but some people can. Okay, so maybe if you can't see it, maybe go out and in, because lots of people can see. Okay, cool. So also in the composition box, we have the announcements, questions, video clips. You can create an announcement, and then you can also pin it. So that's one of the biggest things within this new channel feature, is that you're able to pin posts. So now when people come into the channel, they'll be able to see this post pinned at the top of the channel. And then also in this new sidebar that we have within each channel, you're able to see pinned posts at the top. So it means that, you know, maybe those important conversations or important announcements that come out that are in a channel can be easily pinned at the top, rather than having to scroll through lots of different threads or chats or whatever to try and find that conversation. The important stuff can be pinned at the top. So that's a big feature that have been asked for from a lot of customers. Lastly, is kind of branding theming that we can have in channels. So you can see here at the top that we have this photo here, and previously there was kind of like a doodle or an illustration. You're able to theme or brand your channels depending on what the different project is. So for example, maybe if we had come to the front again, so it just goes in. Maybe if we had one project that was on construction, one project that was on, I don't know, cooking, then you could just change the theme according to what that topic relates to. So lots of exciting things that are coming with channels. I think this is a lot of these features, especially the composition box and that is static whilst moving through the channel, and the pinning and the theming. A lot of these are things that have been highly requested by you guys, our customers. So we're super excited to see them coming into reality within Teams. Next, getting into some sort of new chat features that are rolling out. There's a lot on this slide, so don't feel that you need to consume all this, because I'm going to go through each individual one. But there's a lot of features that are rolling out. They've started kind of October time and are going through the end of the year. The first one is expanded reactions. This GA'd in October, and now instead of just being able to react to a Teams chat with thumbs up, smiley face, heart, whatever it is, you're now able to use all of the emojis that you have within chat to react to chat messages. So that's exciting. You know, if you're agree with one message or something that someone's saying, just +1 and get the emojis in. Oh, lots of people are happy with that one. Good to see that. The next one, which I personally love, is @everyone. So you can now not now, but by the end of the year, you'll be able to mention everyone in a chat. This makes it so handy if, for example, one place I use it is if I have a standing meeting and I need to put the agenda in the standing meeting the day before every week, I can just mention everyone in that group and everyone will get the notification, rather than having to go through @Grayson, @Jonathan, @Sarah. I can just do it once and blanket message the whole group. So this is so useful, and it was very, very highly requested. Allows people to sort of prioritize messages a bit better and all the rest of it. So that is really exciting.
Hey, Abby, we have a couple of questions from 2 slides ago. Can you pin the one-on-one chats or just the channel chats, was one question coming in.
So that's all within a channel. So I'm assuming you mean specific one-on-one chats, or so currently in chat you can pin chat conversations at the top, and then within the channel, what the experience I was showing is you can pin a thread. So like if I start a thread and Sarah and Jonathan and Grace reply to it, we would pin that whole thread to the top of the channel.
Great. And then one other question that was around that same period of the slide was around branding. I would assume this is what Gabriella is asking. Do you need any premium licensing for that?
So, and Grayson, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the when you need the premium licensing is branding in webinars. So this experience that we're doing today, you need the premium license to brand that. Is that correct, Grayson?
Yeah, that's right. And I threw a quick reply in the chat there as well.
Yeah,
perfect.
So for the channel, no, but for like, if you want to brand this meeting, for example, the registration page, the lobby, etc., you would need the premium licensing. Cool, awesome. Moving on, the next one that should be GAing, if you haven't got it in the last couple of weeks, you should see it relatively soon, is scheduling send using Viva Insights. So if you can see in the pop-up, or not the pop-up, the screenshot, Schedule Sends essentially uses the information from Viva Insights. So things like where someone is based and therefore their work hours, and allows you to be a bit more cognizant of their work hours and being able to adhere to that. So for example, Grayson is based on the East Coast of the US. I'm based on the West Coast. So that means that he's 3 hours ahead of me. If I'm pinging him at 3 p.m. Pacific time, that's 6 p.m. his time, and it's out of his work hours. So usually I would, maybe if I was being nice, I'd wait for the next morning, but I'm not too nice, so usually I would just ping him anyway. Now with Viva Insights and Schedule Send, a little pop-up will come up saying, hey, Grayson is out of his work hours. Would you like us to schedule this conversation or schedule this chat message? And we will send it in his work hours the next day. So I'll say yes, I'll type out my chat. So then I don't forget my trail of thought or what I wanted to say to Grayson. And he won't see that until he comes online at 9 o'clock the next morning. So it's just a lot nicer to kind of respect people's work boundaries, especially now a lot of people are working from home. It's kind of harder to pull yourself away from your computer. It just makes it a little bit more, I guess, respectful of people's time. So that's a very exciting one that a lot of people are loving. Another one kind of on this vein, or for lazy people like me, is suggested replies in chats. So we had this in chatting, and it's now coming into group chats as well. If someone messages you something and you just want to do a quick reply, a generic reply, just to show that you've sort of acknowledged their message, you can now use one of the suggested replies. And they're actually very kind of intuitive and sort of are sort of on the money when they're with the suggested reply. So for example, if Grayson sends me a PowerPoint deck or says, hey, Abby, I've done this thing for you, I can now really quickly use a suggested reply saying thanks, or, thanks for your work, whatever it is. It's just a bit nicer to be able to use those. Another feature which has come within Teams and Working Chat, which is kind of on the same vein as what I mentioned earlier with suggested replies, is work hours and location. So this links in with Outlook. We are now able to set your work hours and locations in your Teams client. So you're able to specify both where you're working, whether that's remotely, in the office, wherever it is. And if you need to change or whatever it is, you can see your location that day and your work hours. So for example, maybe I work 7 till 5 one day and then a 9 till 6 another day, or whatever it is. I can put all of that into my Teams client so that people are able to see, okay, Abby is working these hours today. I'm not going to bug her outside, or I'm going to give her I'm going to do a scheduled send rather than messaging her right now. So again, it just makes people a bit more respectful of each other's time, and also beneficial to see where people are working rather than just, having no idea. Another feature within chatting and channels is the unread toggle. So in the activity feed, I don't know about you, but I have a ton of notifications come into my activity feed. Sometimes it's kind of hard to prioritize because they all show as unread, or they all show as sort of new and important within there. The unread toggle essentially allows your chat messages to be presented with the entire thread of that chat, rather than just that one message that the activity is relating to. So this is really handy, because often I would have to go in there, click on it, and it would say, this was the message, but I wouldn't be able to see the context. Now, regardless of age, you're able to see the whole thread and the context. So that is super handy. You're able to now block or accept a chat invitation from an unmanaged user. Previously to this, you weren't really able to accept or block anything. It would just come into your chat thread, and you would just have to maybe try and decipher who it is, or maybe someone had got the wrong person, or whatever it is. Now you're actually able to accept and block those group chat invitations if they are from an unmanaged user. So it just adds a little bit more security to your kind of user profile and your tenant with that ability. So that's a kind of nice one that people are enjoying. On On the similar vein of the feature I mentioned prior to the chat, is the now, if you search in the search box or the search bar at the top of your client, you're able to see the entire chat conversation, regardless of age, if you click on something. So for example, let's say I'm searching for a specific, I don't know, a specific topic that hasn't been spoken about for months and months and months. If I clicked on that before, I would just see that one message rather than be able to see the entire thread. And it just isn't very good for showing context, etc. So now that we're able to see the entire chat conversation history when you do search for a topic, makes it a little bit more cohesive and makes your life a bit better and more efficient. And then lastly, in the chat and channel segment, being able to start a Teams chat with a distribution group or an O365 group or a mail-enabled security group. This one has been asked for, I don't know, since I've worked in Teams engineering, which has been almost 3 years now. So really excited to see this one come in. By all the thumbs up and the hearts, seems like everyone is excited too. So the feature respects things like your limits on members in a group chat, which is currently on, I think it's 255 members. Yeah, you're able to basically chat with your distribution group. So so much handier, easy for people to be able to kind of use the same groups they use in Outlook and just make it a bit more cohesive across the whole stack. So that is very exciting. Awesome. I see there's a lot of chat in the conversation, so thank you, Grayson, for keeping up with that. I have about 5 more slides before you will have Grayson do the rest, so stick with me. Okay, moving into calling updates. So I know there was a calling specific presentation, I think it was yesterday, which may have covered some updates, but just to cover a couple of the sort of, I guess, more exciting and bigger updates that are coming from calling. Number one is the detailed call history. So now, or with this feature, you're able to see a much more detailed view of who has called you and what happened within that call. So for example, if someone called me and it was transferred or forwarded, or something that happened after that call was sort of sent to me, all of that information is within your call history. So if you look at the screenshot, the kind of middle bit is what we've usually seen with history. So it will show me that Grayson and Jonathan both called me yesterday, but now you're able to actually deep dive into each specific call itself and look at the details in more detail. So that's super useful. Just allows you to have a bit more granularity with your calling. And then the other piece that we wanted to call out from a calling update perspective is having better audio when you're in challenging networks. So what this basically means is often when you have, an audio call and people don't have good network, whether they're on their cell or if they're in, just having a one-on-one call, and there's bandwidth constraints, it can really have a effect on your audio, etc. And so we now have this new AI-based enhancement in the Teams packet loss concealment, which is basically allows you to have longer durations, but with a better call audio. So it just means that hopefully your calls are going to be sort of have a better quality for longer, and should make your users' experiences much better. There's been a lot of work done behind the scenes on this and a lot of research into it, as you can see from the content on the slides, and there's been a lot of testing. So hopefully this feature will help with people who are using a lot of calling within Teams and allow your users to have a much better sort of experience on Teams calling. Cool. Lastly, or the last piece I wanted to cover is FLW. So FLW is frontline workers. In healthcare, you can think of a frontline worker as a doctor, nurse, cleaner, receptionist, anyone. Generally, we say anyone who is in shift work. When we look at other industries, people who work in shops or restaurant workers, manufacturing workers, there's frontline workers across all different types of industries. And we've made really big advancements with frontline worker features within Teams over the past couple of years. So a couple of updates that are coming this year or in the next sort of couple of months are on the slide here. So the first one is approvals being able to be saved as PDFs. So now if you are an approval creator, for example, you can save a approval request as a PDF file and then either be able to share it, transfer it, print it, whatever it is, to another system. So lots of people use our approvals with other systems, especially in the frontline worker space. And so now being able to share these, store these as PDFs is so much handier. So excited to see this one coming in. The next one is approvals and integrated SharePoint lists. So now your approvals will be able to create and manage approvals through SharePoint lists. Whereas before it was separate and it was kind of people felt like you were having to jump back and forth between the two. Now they can be integrated. So you can manage and create them and share them within your integrated SharePoint lists. And then lastly, approval tag in Teams. This is, I've worked with lots of frontline workers and this has been really, really highly requested. So now for an approval assigned to a tag, that tag can be sent to the correct members when the approver requester submits it. So that is super handy, makes the creator's life, the requester's life and the people in the tag much more sort of easier and more efficient, and just allows people to kind of have fewer steps to get a job done. So much handier in the long run. Awesome. I know I kind of went through some of those a bit at lightning speed, but I believe the deck is going to be shared on the website, so you'll be able to see all of this information. And I'm now going to transfer to the chat, and Grayson, I'll let you take over, and I will reply to the questions in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Sounds good. Okie dokie. I will go ahead and take over. Hopefully this will seamlessly work here. Let me know if you are now seeing the meeting announcements slide. Just throw me a thumbs up there.
Yeah,
awesome.
We can see it.
Okay, good deal. Okay, so we've got a bunch of really great meeting announcements to go over. To the question earlier in the chat around Teams Premium, we'll also cover that briefly in this section as well, so stay tuned for that. But first off, we do want to kick it off here with Excel Live. You might be familiar with the recent, at this point, it isn't even recent anymore, PowerPoint Live edition. We're using it here in this presentation, right? So PowerPoint Live is a really great way of sharing content to a large audience at once, where you want to have that really high quality PowerPoint one-to-many type of presentation experience, right? So obviously Excel is not a presentation tool. You're not going to be delivering a Excel presentation to a lot of people at once, but you might want to collaborate on an Excel document real time with perhaps several different users at once. And so we've added the ability to do that through what we call Excel Live. It lets you interact and edit Excel files directly from inside the meeting. So if I want to co-author with everyone, perhaps we're working on some document we need to quickly edit together as a team, I can share that and we can edit it from inside Teams, right? So this is pretty neat. Just a couple notes on this. It is supported on the desktop or web. We don't support mobile presenting. However, we do support the ability to follow along from a mobile device. However, you won't be able to make edits directly from inside Teams. It's kind of a view-only experience there. So just be aware of that limitation. There's no need to have the Excel app actually open on your computer. Just make sure that you have the Excel documents uploaded into OneDrive or SharePoint, somewhere where you have access to it, and make sure that you have full sharing permissions on that file in order for this feature to work properly. When you do share it into your meeting, another thing to be aware of is that everyone who's in that meeting at that time will get access to the workbook, and they'll have edit permissions added automatically on their behalf. So take a look at that one. If that's of interest to you, you should be able to use it now. Okay, next up are some advancements for Together Mode. So you might be familiar with Together Mode. It's a feature that's existed for quite some time. Basically, it's the ability to set up sort of a virtual background that overlays everyone's video on top of assigned seating, right? So this is perhaps most helpful for educational scenarios, or maybe where you want to mimic the experience of joining from an auditorium view, right? Where everyone sort of appears to be sitting in auditorium seats and they're sort of facing the speaker virtually, right? So we've made some enhancements to that. The first is the ability to assign seats to specific users. So if you want to ensure that certain people are sitting in certain seats, you can do that from inside Teams. You can see in that screenshot there, that's what we're showing and highlighting in this slide here. The other option that I want to mention is the ability to select this for everyone, right? So what that means is you as the organizer or as a co-organizer have the ability to ensure that everyone's view is automatically changed into this together mode, right? So one of the issues previously was, if I use together mode myself, that typically is something that only I see, right? So as a presenter, for example, right now, I could ask everyone to go enable together mode, but odds are half the people out there won't do it, right? It's not a consistent experience. So this lets me select that together mode view for everyone, which would default all of your clients into that view. So this can be a nice tool for presenters who want to ensure that everyone has a kind of seamless, consistent experience across the board. Okay, so now some Teams premium features. You've probably seen some announcements on this. I've had a lot of questions from my customers that I work with directly on this for sure. We wanted to spend some time on what these features are, how they'll work, and just give you some insight into exactly what's included with that and why it might be worth investing in, at least some licenses for certain users. So we'll go over each of the features that you see here listed on this slide. So I won't bother spending too much time on this. Just wanted to list everything out that we'll be touching on here today in this sort of high-level overview slide. So we'll start by going over meeting guides. So meeting guides basically allow you to easily select the right setup for your meeting based on the discussion topics and the audience. So, a guide would consist of maybe preset meeting options like who might be able to bypass the meeting lobby or who's able to present. And that lets you hopefully set up a meeting more efficiently and focus on the discussion itself rather than on, having to figure out what the right meeting options are for that type of meeting, right? So the thing to be aware of around meeting guides is that they are customized and published by IT. So IT actually gets to set up, determine which types of meeting guides they want to use in their environment. So for example, you might want to define a meeting guide for a client call, maybe a separate meeting guide for a brainstorming meeting, maybe a separate one for an all hands larger type of events where you have maybe one presenter or 2 or 3 presenters presenting to a large group of people, maybe something small like a help desk call, one-on-one type of meeting, that kind of thing, right? So you define those at the IT pro, IT admin level, and then you push those out to your users. And once you've done that, those meeting guides show up inside their Teams clients in that meeting guide section you can see in the screenshot there. And then users can select them whenever they want to create that type of meeting, which will then automatically create the meeting with all the preset options enabled for that type of call without you having to think about it. Okay, so the next one here is branding. This one essentially lets you add some custom branding or images to your meetings. You'll see this show up most prominently on the pre-join experience for the meeting itself. So in the screenshot here, for example, this should be a familiar screen for you at this point, right? We've all used Teams meetings many times before, but what you're seeing here is that custom branding showing up sort of behind what's overlaid on top of it, which is the standard, how do you want to join options, right? Do you want your audio enabled or disabled by default, which devices, and so on. So that's where it shows up, at least here. But this lets you upload that background image for the lobby. It will show up there as well. You can define these backgrounds at an organizational level. So IT, again, can define them and push those out. That way you have sort of a unified, branding at the organizational level, and you're all sort of on the same page in terms of how your meetings look. You can also add custom logos for your organization in addition to that background branding. So for example, if I wanted to send out a meeting that has some custom branding behind the scenes, but also had the Microsoft logo there, I can do that through this feature here. All right, cool. Let's move on to the next one here, which is Intelligent Recap. So Intelligent Recap is pretty interesting. I think, all of us, at least, information workers who spend a lot of time on meetings are sort of bombarded with information these days, right? We spend a lot of our days in meetings. We spend a lot of our time after meetings trying to create notes and sort of track down action items. Project managers, right, are sort of the prime example of the type of person or role that has to spend a lot of their day, tracking notes and assigning, tasks and making sure that stuff gets done, right? And it's a very time-consuming thing that you have to do on a regular basis, right? So the idea behind Intelligent Recap is that we help you, take a lot of the busy work out of all of that, right? So you can see in the screenshot here some examples of the different features that will be rolled into this intelligent recap, right? So first, we'll just go over AI generated tasks, right? So during and after the meeting, we'll use AI to generate tasks based on the discussion that happened in the meeting so that action items are not missed. So it's basically like having a virtual assistant attend and sort of listen into your meeting and then take notes for you and automatically assign tasks to people based on commitments, people having said they'll do something, that kind of thing. And if the AI gets it wrong, that's fine. You can certainly change, who these tasks are assigned to, manage it yourself. It's really just there to hopefully, help take some of that frustration and stress out of having to constantly be taking notes and constantly jotting down action items and who committed to what and so on. Auto-generated chapters. If you're recording the call, then part of Intelligent Recap for you specifically will be auto-generated chapters in that recording to easily navigate, the overall flow of conversation, jump to the important sections that are relevant to you personally. So, if I had a 2-hour call that I attended, for example, and I wanted to go recap that or review it myself, that's a long recording, right? It's hard to know what was discussed at each particular section. Perhaps I didn't even get to attend, right? Maybe somebody else recorded it for me and they sent me a link to the recording. Man, I mean, who has time to watch a 2-hour recording, right? So this auto-generated chapters feature will let you more easily jump to the different kind of high nails within the overall recording. That way you can find content that's relevant to what you're looking for rather than having to search for it. Personalized timeline markers is another feature of the recording that you'll see. Those are generated in relevance to you specifically. So only you see those. They call out specific and important moments in that meeting recording, such as where your name was mentioned in the transcript, right? So if somebody, mentioned me as maybe someone who's working on a project or working on a feature that we're delivering, and I wanted to review the meeting recording and jump to that moment in time where I was called out, then I could easily do that without having to review again the entire hour-long call, for example, right? So that can be very helpful if you are the type of person who likes to review recordings to kind of make sure that you're in the loop on what's going on. It'll also tell you additional information on things like when a screen was shared, right? So if you're trying to find when someone shared their screen to illustrates a problem they might be having locally or to brainstorm on something that they're, working on their computer, you can jump to that quickly. I think other things would include like maybe when you've joined or when you've left the meeting. So if you wanted to jump to the very end of your section, maybe you left after you presented, you could easily jump to there based on the fact that you knew you left right after that. So it makes it finding content inside that recording much easier. And then last is intelligent transcript search. So that will display suggestions for speakers from the transcripts. It's personalized for you. It's based on who you work closely with. So if you're familiar with the Microsoft Graph, all those signals that we use to personalize the search experiences for you today, all that data is being fed into giving you an intelligent transcript search as well. So that helps you jump more quickly through those transcripts and find relevant information there, again, based on who you're working with on a regular basis. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and move on here to the Teams calendar, now including a pop-out for the scheduling view. So this is a relatively small change in my eyes, but I think it's a really nice to have feature. So basically, when you create a new meeting inside Teams, using that new meeting option will pop out the scheduling experience in a separate window, so you can take your time scheduling that without having to worry about being pulled into the rest of the Teams client, right? So maybe you want to have a chat open, you're talking with someone about scheduling that meeting while simultaneously having this new meeting kind of pop out open in a separate window or on a separate monitor, you'd be able to do that. Okay, let's see, live translation for captions. This is another really big one. I have many customers who have users from all over the globe who attend these meetings. And a lot of users rely heavily on captions today for a variety of reasons. So we're kind of building on our existing closed caption functionality and expanding that such that users can actually select a localized language for themselves, and they'll see translated versions of those captions show up live inside their Teams client, which is really awesome to see. I have multiple customers who are already interested in using this, especially for things like town halls, right, where you might have people joining from all over the globe or from other locations, maybe People want to be able to view that caption in their own language without having to, interrupt the flow to ask questions or to ask that a translator actually be present for them. So this could be a really great feature for those types of scenarios. Okay, next up is advanced protection. So advanced protection is another premium feature here. This basically lets you add an additional safeguard to sensitive discussions, right, inside a Teams meeting. So we're adding, as you can see in the screenshots, a watermark option. So if you're using this feature, then the watermark will show up on any content that is shared, any video that is shared. That way, even if someone takes their phone out and records this without anyone knowing it, that watermark would still show up on that recording they took on their device, right? And if they tried to share it, then it would be obvious that it came from that particular meeting and that recording. So this can be helpful for those really, really sensitive topics of conversation. If you're an existing E5 customer and you have sensitivity labels that you've already defined and you're using those for protecting things like SharePoint content, then just be aware that you'll be able to apply those labels to meetings as well. So that will allow you to add an additional layer of protection that aligns with those sensitivity labels you've already defined in your admin centers. Okay, next up is advanced virtual appointments. So advanced virtual appointments are pretty interesting, and I'll spend a couple minutes on this because I think it's a really interesting feature here. But basically, virtual appointments in general are our business to customer or business to consumer side of Teams, right? Typically, if you schedule a Teams meeting, everyone receives a Teams meeting link. We all join with Teams, right? This is a slightly customized, different experience designed specifically for external users or situations where you don't want to prompt the user to download a client or to authenticate with any sort of Azure AD credentials, right? So think of scenarios like maybe a sales call or, here in the healthcare field, virtual healthcare visits is probably the prime example. But you could use this for anything, right? Loan advisory consultations, I don't know, virtual retail fittings, anything, right? So you have the ability to schedule these types of visits already. If you're using, for example, our EHR connector for Teams telehealth, then you already get these appointments being sent out to your patients today. But we have other ways of creating them, right? So we just recently added the ability to create these types of visits from Graph. So if you have a custom solution you're using to schedule those, then you can use that today. A whole bunch of other ways to do it. But what we've done here with the premium license is we've kind of collected all of that. We've brought it into this more advanced virtual appointments app. So you can see it's actually an app that's available on the left side of your Teams client here. And what it does is it gives you this simplified overview of all the different types of virtual appointments that are happening out there in your environment, right? So this lets you see a queue view. So you can actually see and track all of your appointments in one place, upcoming appointments, historical appointments, appointments that are in progress. You can even see if your customers or patients have joined that meeting. And if so, you can see if they're in the lobby, if they're waiting for, in the healthcare field, again, maybe like a provider to show up to actually admit them to the meeting. It's a really nice kind of single one-stop shop for managing and keeping track of all of those types of appointments. It also lets you define and create a custom waiting room for those users. So they receive a branded, really first-class experience that helps them feel comfortable, like they're in the right place from the start, as soon as they join, as soon as they click that link. You'll also be able to see department and organizational level analytics. So you can see things like no-shows, wait times, that kind of stuff. And you can divide that out and kind of view it at the OU level if you want to see how you're performing at different levels. You also can send out SMS reminders to your users. So for example, if maybe a patient is a little bit late for one of their virtual appointments, then you could trigger a SMS notification to be sent to them directly to remind them of that appointment. Or if you want to do that in advance, just to make sure that you're being proactive and helping them remember that they have an upcoming call, you can do that as well. All right, let's see, we'll go ahead and move on here. Last but not least, I wanted to include this webinars feature overview because there are a few features on here that do require premium. So we've bolded those. Not every feature on this page requires premium. So just keep that in mind as we're going through these. We'll just start at the top and I'll just try to note the ones that do require premium. So we've dramatically improved our webinar scheduling experience compared to the way it was before. I'll show you actually a video here of all this in a second, but we've added the option to add co-organizers to your webinar directly from inside the webinar itself. So when you're scheduling it, you can define those users without having to send the webinar and then come back into your calendar, then go into the meeting options, and then find the user you want to select as the co-organizer. Nope, you can do all of that directly from inside the scheduling experience, which is really nice. We've also added the ability to add presenter bios to the event page, again, from that scheduling page. Same thing with event images, theme colors, logos, that kind of stuff. And then we've also added the ability to configure registration capacity. There is a maximum limit of 1,000 people for that feature, so you can go up to 1,000, but if you want to limit it to, say, 500 or 100 or whatever it is, you can now do that, and it'll hit capacity and it'll stop people from registering once you've hit that maximum capacity. A few features that do require premium. If you want to limit the registration start and end dates and time, you can do that. So you'll be able to define a registration date starting on, say, November 1st, ending on November 30th, for example. Manual approvals, that's the ability to allow people to register, but to not have that registration finalized until you manually approve that. And the same thing with waitlist, right? Waitlist allows you to essentially go into overflow for registration, right? So if you define a limit of 500 people, once that 500 registration limit is hit, if you have waitlist enabled, then you'll be able to essentially have people go into a wait list. So if anyone cancels and that registration capacity opens up, they can then automatically be moved into that registration page, which is awesome. Viewing attendee status, that lets you see whether attendees have registered, how many people have registered, all that information from inside the webinar scheduling experience. And then Green Room and Managed Mode is the last one here. Those are both premium features. You might already be familiar with these. I think we've talked about them a couple times in the past, but Managed Mode basically lets you force attendees to only see spotlighted video and any content that is shared. A large sort of premium managed experience where you want to ensure that whatever people are seeing is highly controlled, right? So only contents, like, for example, what I'm sharing right now, and only video that is spotlighted would be seen by end users. It lets you have a much more granular control over that. And then Green Room essentially is the ability to start a meeting early, to have a sort of private place where the presenters and the co-organizers can hang out and prep for their events. In fact, we used that for this session here. We all joined about 10 minutes early, and I think everyone was in the waiting room in your own sort of separate view. And when we were ready to start the meeting, we went ahead and sort of drew the curtain back, and everyone was admitted into the overall meeting. So that's the feature. Super helpful for prepping and making sure that you're all on the same page before the event starts without having to worry about people joining early and perhaps listening in or hearing, content that wasn't intended to be shared at that time. So there's a video I'll play here that goes over this new scheduling experience. I'll go ahead and let this play. It should play back locally on your computer. We'll see what happens. So I'll pause it here. Just want to make sure, throw me some thumbs ups if that started playing for you. Just want to make sure that's working. Excellent. Okay, I see a bunch of thumbs up. So I'll click play. I'll just let the narrator describe what we're seeing here. I think she does a great job of going through it. So I'll click play and shut up. All right, excellent. Hopefully that played out on everyone's computers well. That was intended to be an overview of all the new features that we just went over for webinars. So hopefully that made it a little bit more real for you. All right, we've got 8 minutes left. We'll go ahead and wrap up with some maybe quick features here near the end. So next one here, and we're moving away from anything requiring premium, just so you know, is the ability to use an instant poll for a quick check-in during a Teams meeting. So this could be helpful if you want to just gauge audience kind of reaction to something, maybe a quick thumbs up or a thumbs down to a feature or something you're talking about. Maybe you didn't plan to add that kind of poll into your meeting beforehand, so you hadn't prepped for it or set it up beforehand. Lets you send that quick poll out during a Teams meeting. All right, next up is Microsoft Places. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'm getting a lot of questions from my customers about what Microsoft Places is. So I wanted to give you, hopefully, maybe 1 minute overview on what this is, right? Just so you know what Places is. This is something we announced at Ignite. I want to be very clear. It's not available right now and probably won't be for some time. But this is something that we want you to have an understanding around, at least high level, what it's intended to be, right? So basically, Places will leverage all the common data signals from Outlook, from Teams, and it just gives you the ability to make the best use out of your physical spaces and to optimize your meetings based on where people are actually working and where they're actually spending time, right? So you can see a couple screenshots of our vision for this platform. Basically, the most common example I usually give out for where this might be helpful is hybrid work, right? I mean, I think a lot of us are familiar with the new hybrid reality at this point, right? Some of us work fully in the office now. Some of us are hybrid 2 or 3 days a week in the office. Others, myself included, are fully remote, right? And so it can be challenging to know if you're scheduling a call, how do you make the best use of the physical spaces that you have available to you in a way that's, at least as much as possible accommodates everyone based on where they're physically located, right? So that's what this is intended to help with. So this will give you the option to see where people are working. When you create a new meeting invite, it will let you have access to data on where those people are at, whether they're in the office, remote, if they are in the office, which office, and even within that office, which floor they're actually working on, right? Depending on where their office is located. So it's pretty cool, very intelligent. Gives you recommendations to make sure that you're creating that meeting in a way that accommodates everyone. Again, as much as possible. It's never going to be a perfect solution where everyone has the perfect way of joining, but you want to optimize that as much as you can. So that's the idea here. We'll also support additional features like wayfinding, hot desk booking as well. So if you're, walking through a physical location and you want to find a conference room that's available, you can pull up Places, as you can see, and see which conference rooms are available, which are unavailable, and that lets you find one that you can easily drop in on and start using without having to manually search and walk through an entire floor just to look into every single conference room to see if someone's physically in there, right? So that's the idea behind Places. All right, let's go ahead and move on to devices and IT Pro with our last 5 minutes. The first up is the G7500, Poly G7500, I should say, has been certified as a Microsoft Teams Room device. I know a lot of my IT Pro contacts I work with have been eagerly awaiting this, so I'm excited to share. This is a bit of a unique device. It's a modular system, right? So most MTRs are kind of all-in-ones, right? They include a camera, a microphone, everything you need. This is a modular system, right? It's essentially the brains of the whole solution, and then you connect your own camera, your own microphone, whatever you like, to that device. So this is now certified. It runs MTR Android specifically, so just be aware of that. Next up is the ability to manage Surface Hubs as Teams devices from the admin center. Historically, MTRs, Microsoft Teams Rooms devices, were managed here in the admin center, but Surface Hubs were sort of treated as secondary or different types of devices, and they were not managed from that location. So we're changing that. We're bringing Surface Hubs as devices into the Teams admin center, so you'll have a single pane of glass for managing all of those devices. They will have a separate section in the admin center, but it's still within the admin center. You get all the standard features you're familiar with in terms of managing MTRs. So things like the ability to, remotely restart a device, to view the configuration or change configuration of settings, download logs, all that information will be available there for you if you're an IT Pro. Another certified device, this is a new one, the Crestron Flex. This is a Microsoft Teams display. So this is a display that runs essentially Android with Teams on top of that has a built-in speaker and microphone. It keeps track of your calendar access, lets you single-click join your meetings without having to sign in. These could be really nice devices to deploy maybe in executive spaces. That's where I most commonly see them. So this is a new one that just finished certification. Next up are Sony YY2969 earbuds. These are new certified Teams devices. This Could be nice if you're like me, if you work from home and you tend to wander around a lot when you're talking, it might be good to have these. You can use them. They're connected to your device via Bluetooth. They're team certified, which essentially means they've met a gamut of tests and sort of minimum requirements that we have for audio quality, things of that nature, but also that they support certain features like the ability to tap the right earbud a few times in order to mute the microphone. That could be really nice if you're downstairs on a conference call and you want to mute yourself without having to run upstairs and click the mute button, that kind of stuff, right? So if you want to use those with Teams, go ahead. They are fully certified. Next up is the companion device experience enhancement. This one, I apologize. I know the animation plays really fast here. It's kind of hard to understand, but basically this lets you use the proximity join feature of an MTR to hide the video of people who might be physically in that space. So a lot of us, when we walk into a conference room, we pull out our laptop set up in front of us, and we join that meeting with our video enabled. That way everyone can see us. But of course, that takes up valuable space on the in-room display, right? The MTR itself. There's no reason for the MTR to display the video of people who are physically there. But historically, there's been no way to sort of differentiate between those and people that are external. So what we're doing here, as you can see, is using proximity join data to ensure that only video of people who are remotes away from the room take up space on that display, which I think is really cool. All right, next up is the Neat Frame, another Teams device that has been certified. This is very similar to that previous Crestron Flex I mentioned. Again, I see a lot of these deployed in executive spaces, but they can also be used for hot desking, which I think is the example that we're showing here in that screen. Sorry, I know I'm moving really fast, just 2 minutes left. I want to make sure we get through all these. IntelliFrame, this is what I'm really excited about. This is coming in the near future. IntelliFrame is essentially the idea that when people are physically present in a room, so think a conference room, you might want to have a better way of identifying who is who, right? So again, this is a problem I'm intimately familiar with as someone who works remote. Now that my colleagues, some of them at least, are working in the office, I see this on a regular basis, right? Multiple people walk into a conference room, they turn the MTR on, they join, and then I get to see, this kind of big picture view of the room, and it's hard to know who's who, right, or who's speaking. So IntelliFrame allows either the device through Edge Composite on the left there, or the Microsoft Cloud itself to determine who is actually speaking and where they're located in the room, and then to draw sort of a virtual frame around them. That way it's easier for remote participants to keep track of who is who, who's talking, what's actually happening in the room, which I think can be very helpful. Last but not least, upgraded usage analytics. So there's a bunch of different improvements we're bringing to usage analytics here. I won't go through all of them. Feel free to review them here. But essentially, the idea is that we're trying to align our Teams Admin Center experience with the Microsoft 365 usage reports. So you'll see consistency of data in terms of how that's presented, as well as the actual numbers that are presented there. We're also adding a 180-day aggregated view to the Teams Admin Center, where previously that was limited to, I believe, 90 days only. So I'm glad we're doing that. The other thing to mention here is we are adding support for line of business applications. So if you have any custom apps that you've deployed in your environment and you're using in Teams, you can now see usage metrics for those apps, which I know has been a big ask from a lot of our healthcare customers who have custom apps they're using out in the field. So that is it. I normally would take a few minutes for questions here. I know we're out of time, so I just want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to everyone who attended. Hopefully this was helpful. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Grayson. Can you move forward to the next slide? Sorry, or actually not included, but I'll go ahead and post it in the chat window. We would really appreciate everyone's feedback on today's session. So if you have a couple minutes, if you could fill out the survey, we would greatly appreciate it. We are a very small team on the customer success unit who bring out these great speakers for the summit. So any kind of feedback would be greatly appreciated. And we do appreciate everyone joining, and we will post the video and the PowerPoint out on the Health and Life Science blog in just a couple hours. So give me a little bit of time, but it will be out there today. In addition, you will see an email that will have a direct link if for whatever reason you don't grab it in the chat window today. So thank you once again, everyone, and hopefully we see you on for some of the other sessions later on this week.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Phil. Bye.
Thank you.